This is Only the Strong Survive, a podcast powered by Kahn Media, where we dive deep into the world of business, leadership, and innovation. I'm your host, Dan Kahn, and I'm honored to have you join us today. So let's get ready to learn some survival skills together. Hey everyone, welcome back to Only the Strong Survive. I'm your host, Dan Kahn, and today we've got a great conversation lined up for you about AI in the automotive space. Joining me is Nick Haywood, SVP of Automotive at CI&T, a global digital transformation partner that helps some of the world's biggest brands modernize their technology, improve customer experience, and apply emerging technologies like AI at scale, which we're definitely going to get into. So Nick, first of all, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Excited to be here.
So before we get into your company and what you do, first of all, where are you in the world right now?
I'm in Medellin, Colombia. So a strange location to be dialing in from, but that's where I've lived for the last 5 years.
No, I think, as you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit, it's interesting that you are a truly global company and you guys are based in Colombia, but you've got offices all over the world and I think, a few thousand employees, right?
Yeah, about 8,000 now. We're actually born out of Brazil. So the head office is still in Campinas, which is near Sao Paulo in Brazil. But yeah, clients across the world, US, Europe, and I'm here in our Colombia delivery center.
So before we get into your career path, and I do want to get into both that and the AI side of this conversation, for those who aren't familiar, can you give us some background on the company? What is it? How long has it been around? What's it sort of do in high level terms?
Absolutely. Yeah. So CI&T has been around for 30 years. What we are a global digital specialist. So what we really do is we help our clients understand the opportunities they have in the digital space, and then we design and build those solutions for them. So really, leveraging the best of enterprise software and custom software to make sure we're driving your business forward through tech. Yeah, and at the moment, obviously, a lot of that is leveraging AI and the potentials that's bringing up.
So, can you explain in some examples what it is you do?
Yeah, so in the automotive space, we work with the whole gamut of kind of things. So right from OEMs, so we do a lot of work with Audi, with Ford, with Stellantis, through to the big dealership groups like the Lithias of the world, and then a lot of the kind of the resellers and more niche players like your Hubjects and EV integration. And across that, we really focus mostly on the customer experience. So for Volkswagen, for example, that's when you go into VW.com, you're on stuff that we have built, on platforms that we have built, and that follows right the way through to the applications that you're using and some of the tools you'll be using within the dealership. Everywhere you're touching digitally with a brand is something that we can help our clients.
So it's everything from web dev to customer journey to apps. It's all of it.
All of it, and all the stuff you need behind to make that happen. So your data management, the customer CRM platforms, commerce platforms, etc. Well,
let's back up a little bit because I want to hear more about you, and then I definitely want to get into the AI thing. So you don't strike me as somebody who is from Colombia.
Good spot, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty observant that way. So give us your background. Where are you from? Did you grow up wanting to work in this industry? What's your early background?
Yeah, so I'm from Brighton originally, which is a small city in the south of England, and definitely didn't grow up wanting to work in this industry, didn't grow up knowing what I wanted to do, really. I'm from a fairly working class family. All my uncles are builders, all my aunties are nurses, and that was what I assumed I would become. At that moment where you're kind of leaving school and deciding what to do next, I was working as a labourer for my dad, earning £80 a day, carrying bricks, which felt pretty amazing. I was like, wow, I'm rich. But fortunately at the time, education, university, or what you guys call college, was free or heavily subsidized by the government. So my dad said to me, look, you can carry on working for me, and this is great, but you will be working here till you die. So why don't you go have 3 years having some fun at university and then come back and carry on working afterwards. So at the time I was studying biology, chemistry, maths and drama. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have some fun, then I'll go have to study drama at university. So I went to Goldsmiths University, started studying drama with no intention of doing anything or staying there, and fully intending to go back. And whilst there, just kind of met a very different crowd to what I'd grown up with, people with much higher aspirations than me and similar abilities. So I was like, well, actually, if you guys can aim so high, why aren't I trying something else? So yeah, I ended up staying in London after university and had a strange journey into the tech industry, which we can cover.
Did you finish? Did you get a degree?
Yep, got a degree. I am officially a confirmed certified actor.
So you got the degrees in drama.
Drama and theatre arts, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, obviously not very good at it because I didn't work in that industry. But when I left uni, I stayed in London, got a job at an event management company. So it's like, oh, this is really, for the time, felt like a very well-paid job, exciting career, running kind of big, high-profile events, and it was awful. Like, truly had the worst human as the owner and boss of the company, and just doing very, very bad practices. And that's my first experience in a kind of office traditional job. I was like, wow, is this what it's all like? Is this how it is? So after 2 months, I kind of said, this isn't for me, and left, and needed to find a job quickly. And a friend was working in a tech firm and said, we have a data entry opening. So I was like, yep, I'll do anything. I need to earn some money. So I went in and started doing data entry at a tech firm, and over many, many years, eventually worked my way up to COO. But,
wow. Of the same company?
Not a plan, different company, but a few versions. I worked myself up in that company. Started owning a lot of the automotive clients we had within that client. Really enjoyed the industry, enjoyed the type of people who are in the industry, how they think, how that kind of entrepreneurial solve problems, not big bureaucracy and plans, but let's fix the thing in front of us and move forward. Someone who I knew from that firm went on to set up another company. When they won a big automotive client, they said, why don't you come across? And then kind of through there, worked my way up at that new company to COO. Initially in the UK, building our companies there, then moved to the US, won a few automotive
Now, is this Somo?
There.
Was that?
That was Somo, yeah.
So you joined Somo Global in what, around 2011, something like that?
2011, and Somo at the time were a mobile marketing company. So doing that kind of Gen 1 period of mobile, those little banner ads you used to see on your phone, which no one else was kind of doing. It was very novel at the time. But they won Audi as a client to do mobile development, so building applications and web, and that's when they called me in to kind of run the Audi relationship. And the first person really on the one of five on the kind of tech side of the business. And then from there we grew it to 300 people, many clients, but a lot in the automotive space, and got the opportunity to move up to the US, set up the business there, and then down to Colombia, and then CI&T actually acquired Somo. And that's
So you start this office for Somo in Medellin, and you start building a team, and at that point, is CI&T based in Brazil?
Yeah, so they were I think about probably 5,000 folks at the time, and mostly in Brazil, but with clients in the US. So nearshore first model really, but already doing great business in the US. We got board approval to set up in Colombia at the end of 2019. We went out there and selected the offices, hired the first team in January, February, and then obviously in March 2020, COVID hit. So everything changed. So we had this whole big plan, and then suddenly everything changed. So it was a very different start to how we wanted to go, but we made the most of it, and kind of never looked back from there.
So when you were CEO, did you have an ownership stake in Somo, or?
COO, yes. Yeah.
COO, yeah. Right. So did you guys go shopping for someone to acquire you, or did they approach you?
We did years ago and failed. We appointed a firm to help us back in, I think it was 2017, and just what we wanted to do wasn't aligned with what they wanted to do. And then in 2021, we got approached by a number of firms, some real big players, and of which, but we weren't in a process at all. But we were just on a real great growth trajectory. Technology was booming. We were quite an exciting player, small enough to absorb, but really, with big name clients. Working with the likes of Goldman Sachs, HSBC, Vanguard.
This is on the Somo side.
This is on the Somo side. So we were punching so far above our weight that.
And at that point, before the acquisition, what was CI&T doing?
Same, but 30.
Okay. So this was like a growth through acquisition play, basically. We're going to absorb you, get your client roster, get your talent.
They had a few theories behind the acquisition. One, they were very small in Europe, and Somo Hub was born in the UK, so we had a kind of a larger footprint there. Two, they had a strategic plan to start growing talent outside of Brazil, because Brazil's amazing and huge population, and CI&T is the dominant, the Google of that place. People want to work there. People
okay.
Thousands of applications every single month. But it's important to have, as we've seen with the chaos in the world at the moment, it's important to have differentiation and different options. So they wanted to open in Colombia specifically as well as the next biggest market in South America. So that came with that. And then there was a whole new vertical as well. So CI&T hadn't done some stuff in the automotive space, but not to the scale of SOMO. So kind of it had that kind of 3-tier benefits for the M&A of a new market in Europe, a new development hub in Colombia, and a new vertical in our automotive clients.
How did your role evolve? I mean, this was a few years ago now, obviously it was a while ago. So how did your role evolve as part of the acquisition, and how did it shape kind of the work you were doing at CI&T?
Yeah, I don't know if you can spot already by my kind of strange path through life, but I never ever thought I'd be a big company guy. Like I love being able to fix problems. I love being able to see people I'm working with and understand and see where their career's going and where we can help each other and get in and get it done. And whenever I had to interface with big companies, it was, my clients are big companies, and I share their frustration. The things that, the reason they have to hire us sometimes is because they can't make change within an organization that size. So when the acquisition happened, I thought, this is great. These are really nice people. Give it a couple of years and make sure, it all goes well and it's all really successful. And then
which is usually, that's the usual path, right? Is usually when a company's acquired, executive leadership stays on for a couple of years, helps with the transition, and then sort of goes on their way.
Yeah. That was what I assumed. But when I came into CI&T, I found a 8,000 person small startup company thinking the way I think and evolving the way I think. And there's a really unique organizational design here that for me just resonates perfectly in that we're still founder led. So the two guys who left college and set it up are still Bruno, the president, and Cesar, the CEO, are still there helping direction, which I like that kind of that feel and that mindset that being a founder-led company brings with you. And then secondly, to keep that agility, now that we're 8,000, they introduced a really interesting organizational design around a concept called adhocracy. But essentially, we're organized into growth units of around 400 people with its own leadership and its own subset of clients. So that means that for me, who likes small companies, I can run one of those growth units, specialize on automotive, and make the right decisions for the clients. So yes, we have the power of the 8,000 person company, but if you want to do things slightly differently, I don't need to change the way we do stuff with 8,000 people. I need to change it with 400, and we can try and evolve. And then the same thing on the team size. Me and the leadership team who run this growth unit can really understand where people's skills are, what they want to try out, and move faster than our competitors. So yeah, I love it. Get a fairly free rein to do stuff, and the model works for our industry because each one of these, there's about 30 of these growth units now, are all testing different stuff. So we're all trying different things, and suddenly one of them will work, and then we can share that with everyone else, and we all start doing it. So it's a lovely model, and yeah, it took a little bit of adjusting to going from being all powerful CEO bearing off the side stuff to now being like, okay, cool, these are the bits I can decide, and these are the bits which I'm like, yeah.
Well, let's get into Open Auto. Can you explain what is Open Auto? I guess start with the elevator pitch. What is Open Auto?
Yeah. So going back to what kind of the main thing holding back the automotive industry at the moment is fragmentation. So the customer experience is not good. It's not good digitally, and it's expensive to do. And this isn't through, if I look at the pitches I was doing 20 years ago about vision pieces in automotive, I could basically use the same pitch now, and we haven't moved it forward. And that's really frustrating. And the main reason is because of this fragmentation. Like I said, born out of good reasons of entrepreneurialism and fixing stuff and selling it to other dealers, but it ends up with a big mess, and it's hard. And that mess is about to get 10 times worse, maybe 100 times worse because of AI, for two main reasons. One, the opportunities that dealerships and OEMs are going to have in an AI world are going to really blossom and bloom. Like there's that, at the moment, I think AI is being used in automotive to just do the same stuff as we used to do, but now a lot faster. I used to send a personalized email to you because I remember you came in my dealership. Now that AI is doing it for us to 10,000 people at the same time. That chatbot feels like a human, but it's still the same stuff, just more. What's about to happen is a lot newer types of experience. Customer behavior changes are gonna come in. So as a parallel, I use what happened with the advent of mobile technology. So when Apple launched the iPhone and the App Store, I don't think anyone thought that the consequences of us having an App Store would mean that banks on the main street would start to shut. For the first time in US history, banks started closing rather than, and that was because of behavioral change, how we use this tech. And that's going to happen even more so with AI. So, if you just look at simple things like synthetic customers, if I start using my AI companion for more and more of my life management, which feels like a fairly logical step and where behavior is going to go, then I'm probably not going to look at go and say, oh, I need my car needs a dealership. I'm going to see which one I want to service it at and book it in. My companion will just know my car needs service, and it will pick one of the dealers for me based on whatever guide rails I've set. I could say I've set it for the cheapest, or I've set it for the most convenient, or I've actually picked somewhere because of some past relationship I had. And everything is set up at the moment to market to humans, to service humans, and that's all about the change. And so how do I market to a synthetic customer who isn't affected by emotion, who has some guide rails in there? So we're going to need a lot of new stuff built and a lot more experiences built. And the other side, it's got so much easier to build stuff. So if before the fragmentation problem was I, as a local dealership group or as an entrepreneur and an OEM, hire someone to build it, and then that went through. Now I don't even have to hire someone to build it. I could go vibe code stuff, and it might not be security strong, it might not be great, but it will work and it will look good for my area. So when you take that, lots more solutions are going to need to be built, and it's a lot easier to build stuff. This fragmentation problem is just going to balloon. Not only is that going to be damaging for the whole industry and in bringing a lot of risk, it's also going to make it nigh on impossible to do things at scale, because you're going to have so much fragmentation that the customer journey for customers is going to get even worse. So if you think already cars aren't that affordable, and it's going to get even more expensive to market and distribute cars, so therefore costs are going to go up as well. So it's not only is it a bad experience for the customer, it's going to be less profit for OEMs and more expensive for customers. So I don't want to be sitting here in 15 years going, oh God, it was my vision from 20 years ago now was now 45 years ago. It still isn't possible. So we're going to try and get in front of it, and we're going to use, we're investing a fair amount of our time and effort and teams and money to start to build the standards in AI for automotive retail. We are aware that if they are truly to be kind of open source standards that work for everyone, that we need to make sure this has a wider viewpoint than us. So we want to set it up and owned by a separate entity. This is where Open Auto comes in, where our vision is that we have advisors like from the OEMs, from dealership groups, from industry bodies that already exist, like Star, who do an amazing job with kind of the data and the API and the kind of technology from now on, as advisors on that board, making sure what we're building is fit for the future and fit for all the different various.
So the
OEMs.
idea is it would be sort of hopefully I don't say this the wrong way because I don't want to get sued. It's what Elon and Altman, I think, wanted to do originally with OpenAI before it turned into this other thing, is what it sounds like. It's sort of an open source, almost like a set of guidelines of how AI could be used for the customer journey in automotive that any company could, in theory, participate in. Is that a fair recap?
Yeah, and I think it's not participating; it's the kind of baseline they can use to start from. So it's, they can. What I think you may have more experience in this from all your SEMA relationships. It's very easy to create standards. It's very, very hard to get people to use standards. So and I think Star in automotive retail have done a brilliant job of creating new standards. There's still so many OEMs. It's been around for years. There's still so many OEMs not using it. So we want to make it easy. We're going to build actual solutions that people can use, that you could take now and just plug into your local inventory lookup, plug it into whatever you're using, so that it's the path of least resistance is to use the standards. Now that takes a lot of investment. That means we have to build a lot of these things out as actual workable products and then give them away for free. So it's a kind of a not common approach, and that's why we're setting it up as this not-for-profit entity, so that we don't get tempted in a year's time to say, actually, now we're going to start charging a license. We're going to really want to do something right for the industry. Our hope is, and obviously this CI&T is a commercial business. We are here to make profit for our shareholders, but by giving something back to the industry will help us make for our existing clients, we can do more because they won't have this fragmentation problem, so we can be a better partner, and equally it'll do what is the hardest thing in the world to do, and what car media do a lot of is get us recognized and get us the kudos for saying, yeah, you are actually doing something meaningful here. You are different to the other companies. You are trying to help solve a real problem. Well,
yeah, and you noted SEMA, and that's something you and I have discussed in the past, is that they did that on the ACEs and PIEs standard, which is application and product data, where there was no uniformity for decades, and every company approached it differently, and it just tortured the WDs, it tortured the retail sales outlets, it made online commerce super challenging. And I was there for that whole thing, and it was anytime you try to tell a bunch of rebellious entrepreneurs that they have to sort of abide by a uniformly accepted set of rules, you're going to get people pissed off, and you can't tell me what to do. But thankfully, at least in that case, everyone did finally see the light and say, oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to have to change. Change is hard, and we're going to have to adapt to a new sort of process. But once they did it, they realized, oh, now we're all sort of playing with the same rule book. And suddenly this thing makes it easier. Hiring is easier. Managing your team is easier. Everything is, doing load sheets in that case was easier, because all of a sudden now there's a uniformly accepted standard. And if we can train to that, we can add repeatability into our business model. And that means stability, right? And that means scalability and profit and all those things. So I get what you're doing. And I think it's interesting. So I'm curious on the AI side, can you give me some examples of if you sit and think as a leader, what does that look like 5 years from now? How does that play out in some real world applications, theoretically, for some of these customers, whether they're your customers or not? What is that? What is the use case? What does that actually look like, implementing some of this kind of standardized AI?
Yeah. So I think on the standardized challenge, I don't disagree as well. This is a very hard challenge. I think we have two things that are in our favor in this scenario. One, it's all completely net new. No one's doing this, so there's not out there. So by building this and saying, look, this is your easiest path to get into this space, hopefully we can stop it before it happens. And secondly, organizations like Star, who did all that hard work, like SEMA did in your area, they've done all this hard work to try and get people aligned within automotive retail on that. So we're building on the Star standards. So it's always like, adopt that. You've already had that fight. Now you get all this AI stuff out of the box. In terms of what those real world applications might be, I think the easiest one at the moment to forecast is that AI as a companion to me as a customer. So changing fundamentally how dealer groups and OEMs are used to interacting with their company. If you think everything's about influencing that emotional connection, a lot of that's just going to go, because a lot of that is going to be, my interface is going to be with my companion, and then my companion will decide what comes into that world. So it starts to know me, and it says, oh, actually, I know Nick values convenience over price or whatever, so I'm going to suggest these options. And as cars start to get smarter, it'll already know where to book it in and do cost comparisons or do whatever it is. So, but I'll pre-configure that. It won't be a decision that I'm making on the fly based on what I've influenced, what I've seen, or everything that today's marketing is set up to do. It was a real good, it's a real good analogy put in the automotive, in the kind of autonomous vehicles scenarios, that these things are programmed and these things are guided to follow certain guide rails. So if I am no longer, if we as a human are driving a car, and something awful happens, like a person walks out into the street, and I can swerve to avoid them, but I'm going to hit a bus over here or injure my family, then that's a decision that each human makes on their own. Yeah,
there's a logic, I guess, to that, right?
But it's a human. But for a car, for an autonomous vehicle, that has to be programmed. So imagine an I as a human, and then when I buy that car, might have to make a decision about what, in that scenario, what do you want me as a car to do?
Right. Do you hit the pedestrian, or do you hit the pedestrian,
or do I risk my family and that? And these are things we're going to. So these guide rails, again, that's a very clear one, but it's going to be happening with everything. Your companion, you will set guide rails for how you want it to interact, and then it'll go off and do that on its own. And at the moment we're just starting to see that, and we're not. We're all set up to do business with customers. So then that's the one we can see right now in terms of what happens next, like those fourth order, third order impacts that happen from just complete behavior. I mean, obviously you're getting out there with like autonomous vehicles, mobility. Do we still own cars? Do we just have a ride share that comes and picks us up and drops us? I think that's again a very market specific and human specific decision. Maybe in cities you'll have subscriptions to cars. I don't think we know yet. I think for years everyone's been saying mobility is going to change, people aren't going to own cars. It hasn't happened yet. I don't see it happening, at least in the next 5 years. But customer behaviors will change, and we're going to need to adapt faster than ever before.
Interesting. Where do you see the fastest return on investment when AI is implemented correctly for customers, when they come to you and say, hey, Nick, we don't know how to harness this. What should we do? What do you tell them?
Right now, it's differentiation. Like, I don't know if you remember back at when kind of Google search started becoming the thing. Those people who got on it first had all the traffic, and then eventually now everyone's there and it's competitive. We're in exactly that same window they are. Those first movers who start embracing this tech, who start using this, who see these customer behaviors coming in and jump in with 2 feet now, are going to get all the traffic and get all the attention, all the eyeballs, and it won't last long because in 1-2 years everyone will be there. So I think now it's get out there, play, build some stuff. We're talking to clients about just getting, there's a ChatGPT app store, having things in there now, even without having the business case, because you can't have the business case for something that hasn't been there yet. But if by being there first, we'll get those traffic. It's exactly the same. Those dealers who got on Google search first,
so
Google Maps.
Discovery, it sounds like, is the answer for now. It's the early days of the internet. You want the best SEO, but the 2026 version.
Yeah, and for everything. Like if I go now and say I want to book a service to ChatGPT, it'll find me how to do that. So you being the one that receives that is for this year is the differentiator.
Okay. And what's the biggest misconception you're hearing from executives when it comes to AI as you're having these meetings and talking to these folks, especially in automotive?
I think in automotive, there's two different audiences that I interact with a lot. I think there's the OEM side, which are kind of inherently risk averse. Have seen this movie before. We've been through all these hype curves, and let's see what happens. And are locking down on what you can do and what you can't do, and saying, "Oh, well, I used Copilot in my Microsoft Word and it was rubbish." And so, okay, cool, yeah. So I think there's that almost fear first. Let's get it perfect before we roll it outside that we're seeing, and we're helping to overcome that by saying, no, you have to start using this. This isn't an optional thing. Yes, we have a product called CI&T Flow, which essentially gives you as a secure gateway to the LLMs. So don't give them all your data. Use this, do it via here, and have it in an enterprise structure train. And what we do is not just give access, but give training. So find these teams that you want to work with and show them how to use it, help empower them to build their own agents that aren't out-the-box stuff that may or may not work for your company, but that specifically works for your tiny, tiny niche, and get into your mindset that you can solve this problem just for one team now. And it's cost effective to do so. So then that's on the OEM side is kind of really helping them on the security, the enterprise infrastructure, and the governance of how to roll out AI and get use of it. On the dealership side, I've seen what's the opposite challenge. It's like, I don't know if you were at the NADA conference this year, but everyone's selling AI to solve every single problem in the world, and you just plug it in and it goes. And it's almost it's just not true. And then most of it a lot of it is hype, and a lot of it is repeating the stuff which maybe wasn't the best process you were doing before, but now you can do it 1,000 times. So it's like, go back to the basics.
Even outside of automotive, and I mean, as an agency that spends a lot of time and energy on AI in our workflows with clients, on LLM discovery, kind of at all levels, even the variance between the existing platforms is hard. I mean, what GPT did really well 6 months ago, it does some things much better. It does some things much worse. Copilot is all over the place. I mean, it's the variance between the platforms and then even within the platforms in their versions is shocking.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that was the idea of CI&T Flow, is that you can pick the right one for your. And also, this industry is so nascent that half the people who are working it now may not be there in 5 years' time, and there may be 3 or 4 huge mega companies that haven't even been born yet. So you need to have that. If you're going to invest in getting these AI workflows, you need to have that flexibility on the back end. So actually now Anthropic's what I'm using for this particular challenge. I'm going to use OpenAI and blah blah blah. But I think more importantly than that, so that's like selecting the right AM and AI and governance. But I think more importantly than that, especially on the automotive retail side, is you need to understand your business first before you throw AI at it, because all you're going to do is do the wrong things faster, unless and I think that's what I saw at NADA. It was like, oh, you used to call all these customers, now I can call 1,000 customers in a minute. And it's like, but is that the right channel to be contacting those customers?
And if you don't have the right messaging to close, then what is the point?
Yeah. Well,
you just gave me the perfect tee up to the next question, which was, my thought is that the AI is only both internal, so for workflows, right, but also external for like inbound lead gen and stuff like that. AI is probably only as good as the data behind it, right, and the prompts behind it. How prepared are most organizations from a data and infrastructure standpoint to handle sort of onboarding this type of technology?
Not very prepared, and particularly in the automotive industry because of the fragmentation. But I think what I'm seeing is people are using that as a barrier not to do it. So, oh, we're not prepared to, and actually, there will be somewhere where you are prepared. There'll be somewhere where this can really add loads and loads of value. Let's start there. Let's use that. Let's use that as an internal lighthouse within your organization, and then we have the data to say, well, actually, let's move more of it here, and also the whole industry is changing so quickly. So the things that were impossible to do before, because that would be a 10-year, multi-million-dollar migration process, could now be literally weeks or months to do it. So things that you were not on the table are now hugely on the table. So the ability for people to get prepared is the barriers to get prepared are lower than ever. So I would say start with an area you already know, prove it out, get that business case, and then the things that you wrote off before is we can't possibly, because that's a huge data migration, reevaluate that in an AI world, because I guarantee you it's 5 times faster as a minimum. Like if what you're doing isn't 5 times faster than it used to be, then you're doing it wrong.
So your advice would be if someone in an organization feels overwhelmed, but they want to implement AI, is that first step is just sort of figure out what you're already doing well and apply it to that to accelerate.
So figure out where you can get the access to the right levels of access, where you have a team ready to and wanting to embrace this stuff, and then go through it. We have a kind of a 3-month rollout plan that proves it, drives some results in that, because then suddenly you get people interested and you get the investments unlocked.
So, controversial question, and I'd love your opinion on this. I think we're probably too early to know if it's happening yet, but you go on LinkedIn and there's all these chats and posts about like the AI jobs apocalypse and how AI is going to just cause this massive societal like purge or whatever of jobs. Is that real? Is that not real? Are you seeing AI changing the way teams are structured inside these organizations? What are you seeing and where do you think it's going?
Absolutely 100% seeing how it's changing way teams are structured and what those teams are doing. Completely disagree with that. All the jobs are going to go. Jobs will 100% change, but if in our world, a good programmer isn't a data entry person. They have to do at the moment data entry because that's how you code. Now they're going to be using other tools to do that. But I think you've only got to look at, and I think there's an announcement, both Anthropic and OpenAI have started huge $3 billion venture funds to buy services firms such as like CI&T or others, because they realize the only way to get AI to its full potential and roll it out is actually to have people on there making it, evolving it, integrating into businesses and solving those solutions. So I think the roles will change, the team shapes will already change, the processes of how we do it. I think we've just about got most customers onto Agile from waterfall development before. That's probably gone. Agile probably isn't right, because why am I having an hour meeting about something that takes me 15 minutes to build? So those processes will change, but the need for people to be there, to guide it, to review, to evolve it will still be there. And we're growing, our competitors are growing, people are hiring, even the OpenAIs and the Anthropics of this world are hiring at scale. So yeah, change for sure. Everyone losing their jobs. I don't think so. And I think, even if you dig into those posts about where people are being laid off a lot, which is awful and terrible, a lot of it is being used, I think they call it AI washing. They're using AI as the excuse when really it's a leadership problem for mishiring in the past or scaling too big or whatever.
Certainly in the tech industry, that seems like the case for sure, right? Where they're doing a purge to get their EBITDA numbers up and then kind of quietly trying to sort of, they're not even blaming AI, but there's sort of a silent sort of implication that it's AI, right? I mean, you're far more deep into this than I am, but it seems like from the conversations we've had with enterprise level companies, as well as even our smaller businesses, it seems like it's more of an efficiency accelerator. So if you have a small, fast moving team, it's not that you want that team to be smaller because you have these AI tools or agentic AI. It's that same size team can now do a lot more, and it can be faster and it can be more productive. And it's almost like an accelerant.
Yeah, exactly right. I think we're at the easy phase of AI right now because it's in business control. So we're using it as an efficiency play to do more of the same stuff. But if we go back to that customer behavior changes, the whole every business is going to be radically different in 5 years. So as we get more efficient doing stuff, we're going to need that efficiency to capitalize on these new opportunities that are emerging in an AI first world. So much stuff now which we just don't do because it's cost prohibitive. And as we get more and more, as we get this 5x improvements in productivity, 20x improvement, we'll do some of those harder to reach things. And we'll need to, because as we said, like if most tech systems are going to have to be completely rebuilt in the next 5 years to take advantage of these new wet customer behaviors and integrate with companions and everything. So we need that efficiency there to be able to capitalize on this next wave of revolution that's going to come.
Do you think, I know from my personal experience, I went from being sort of recalcitrant about AI just a few years ago to kind of begrudgingly using it maybe 2 years ago to now it is so completely integrated into my workflow every day. But even my behavior as a consumer has changed, where I've gotten to the point now where and I hate to admit this, as somebody who's been involved in marketing my entire adult life, I am lazy when it comes to, if I want an answer, literally this morning, my wife had nothing to do with this conversation. It was a question about gardening and soil. And she said, what do you think we should do to amend the soil, blah, blah. I certainly could have done a Google search and then go through that first page of search results and look at the sources of that information and click a couple links and read a couple things and see if I can suss out the information she's wanted. It was so much easier to I took a picture of a soil sample report she had, I uploaded it into Gemini, and I just voice to text, here's what I need from you, and it spit out the answer, and it gave me a link of where I could buy the amendment, and the whole thing start to finish was done in about 30 seconds.
Yep.
That's pretty hard to beat. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Now, was that the right answer? Probably. I don't know. Was there a better answer out there if I spent an hour doing research? Maybe. But there is an efficiency component to it. Do you think, as consumers, is there a risk to sort of cutting out that experience? I mean, in the old days, you and I are, of an age that, I don't know about you, but like I grew up with a computer, but it was a pretty basic computer. But, but like I think the generation before us, for example, you want to buy a new car. Maybe they would go to the newsstand and buy a copy of Motor Trend, right? Maybe they'd talk to the car guy on their street. Maybe they just went to the dealer, and it was a local dealer because these were all small little independent franchises in every town. And you'd kick the tires and you'd drive some stuff and you'd talk to a salesman you probably didn't trust and kind of have your gut instinct and say, well, I like buying Fords and this is a nice car and I drove it and okay, I'll buy this. And then all of a sudden the internet comes along 25 years ago and suddenly you have things like Edmunds and Kellogg Blue Book, and you can do more research and you can look at market data and you can say, oh, well, if I do want to buy this car, I could get a better price if I go 2 towns over because that dealership maybe has more inventory. And that was a big deal 25 years ago. Now that whole thing has been sort of outsourced, right, to an LLM. And I'm saying, hey, you help me figure out what's going to be the best for my use case and tell me which vehicles you recommend. And then, by the way, where should I buy one? And then it's going to spit out that recommendation. And obviously, like you said, this is nascent. We're still in the early days. So do you think this is a net good, or is it a net bad, or is it a neutral? What do you think this means?
I think it's a net good. I think there will be bad along the way, and I think there will be also with any new wave of stuff. There's a push to until we know the consequences. Like social media, I think is a prime example. When that came out, it was just great. Oh, great! I can interact with my friends. I can do this. I can
see my friends.
Get your kids on it. Right. Yeah, I'm connected. Like now, we obviously know there's huge trauma being inflicted on a whole generation due to social media and limiting and how we need to do it and how we and I'm sure that will happen with AI as well. We will overuse stuff. We will go too far one way, and then we as a society will correct and say this is how we govern it. When anything new comes out, that governance and that self-management isn't there yet, and we have to make some of those mistakes. But I think the end will be net positive. And I think even it was interesting hearing to your example of like it was easy to do I should have done it the traditional way of going online and Google searching it, which even that wasn't the traditional way.
No.
That's like, I would have gone to a garden center and
Right.
spoken to someone and probably got the best advice. That would have been the best advice.
Right. Or go to a library and get a book on it. And,
right. And now we've accepted that we're maybe not getting the best advice, but we're getting convenient advice with Google search.
That's a good point.
And now it's the next one on, so people adapt so quickly, and this will just become the norm, I think. And I think, but what I find really interesting, which I don't think anyone can say yet, is what new behaviours will emerge from that. So at the moment, we're replicating the internet wave by saying I searched it there, now I search it on ChatGPT. Whereas actually, I think the actual behaviours will change. It won't be a search anymore. Something else will happen. Some guy will just turn up at your house because your companion ordered it, or like that. That's the kind of the next level of change that I think we haven't. There'll be just completely new things we do, not the same thing but in a different way, that are yet to emerge yet, and that's going to be really interesting.
That's an interesting point. And looking ahead, how do you think AI is going to change the industry in the next 5-10 years? Do you think, is it just the consumer experience? Is it the way dealers are run? How obviously the OEMs are in sort of a weird place right now as they're navigating electrification and Chinese product coming online and globally. I mean, there's a lot of change happening, not just with AI.
Yeah, I think in the same way, like as a society, we'll go over-index one way and then realize what amazing benefits there were of understanding my dealer, of knowing and having that trusted relationship. And I think you're already starting to see that. People are already cutting on, even on the LinkedIns and the emails of this world, like devalued because it's obviously written by AI. So something that was amazing at first for convenience. So I don't think this is, the death of the dealership group. I don't think there's a death, it's going to be direct to sales. And I think we'll start to value some of these human interactions, which is more. But it is going to be a disruption. It is completely going to change how we buy and own cars. The one thing one of the things I'm not smart enough to predict is the impact of autonomous vehicles. Like this, I feel, could be that seismic change that everyone's been talking about for years. Because if you suddenly got autonomous vehicles, like it does really, and a squeeze on affordability and ownership, and maybe in the US this will be different because there's certain emotional connection to owning a vehicle and
cars and freedom and that whole thing.
And that's the whole different. So it'd be different the world over, but I think certainly places like Europe may change how we fundamentally own cars, which then also has a knock-on check of how OEMs produce them and how the dealerships work with them. But it will at the same time create millions of more opportunities, because if this is a public fleet of vehicles moving around, think how many opportunities for new companies that don't exist yet and new business models that don't exist yet to facilitate that, to make it happen, to compete against each other and provide better services in that space. Like you can see Walmart getting into the autonomous vehicle journey because actually, we know your companion, your car comes in and drives it, and then the little bit gets out of the car and drives around and picks the items off the shelf. So things are going to change for sure. And we don't know how they're going to change, but I think I think we'll still value that human connection. We'll still value, especially such an emotional thing like a car, we'll still value that passion that comes from it. So I don't think it will change as much as the potential dystopian views that are kind of out there at the moment.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. First of all, I will go on record saying I will always own a car. I like owning cars. Most of my cars are pretty archaic by today's standards, except my daily driver, but I like that. I like analog. That said, I do see your point. And I think that if there were a fleet of autonomous vehicles and there was sort of a shared ownership, or no one owned a car, but you could have this little, pod show up and you get in and it takes you where you have to go and you can work or watch a movie or whatever, and it deposits you and then goes on to the next person. And, it's interesting because even that year or so during the lockdown in 2020 to early 2021, there was a lot of things about that were obviously very challenging and very bad. One of the interesting side effects was because people weren't traveling, they had more disposable income, and they didn't put that money in the bank. They spent it, and they spent it on travel. They spent it on, outdoor recreation products. Mountain bike sales exploded for a year or two. RV sales went through the roof. And so, and then all of a sudden when you could start going on vacation, you could get on an airplane again, you could go on a cruise again. all those numbers came back down to normal and then kind of ended up back to sort of 2019 numbers. So I do wonder if maybe a side effect, and again, US is a little different, but maybe in Europe, maybe in some of these other economies where if somebody was more in an urban setting and willing to not own a car, if they don't have to pay that monthly car payment, if they don't have to have the fuel bill, if they don't have to pay the insurance bill, that disposable income maybe gets injected into the restaurant economy, into travel, into, I don't know. So I guess you're right. There's a long tail to this.
Yeah, and I think even like, and I'm the same, by the way. Like as you can see behind me, lots of physical printed out books,
yeah,
which would be much more practical, as my wife tells me frequently, to have on a Kindle. And I work in tech, but this is like my thing that I own. I want to pass those on to my kids and fix the books when they break. Yeah. And I think there's even more 10x that in the automotive industry, like, and that's wonderful. And that's, you see the passion of the engineers that build the stuff are the same, and it connects through. But I do think there are practical considerations that will become more and more of a force as we move forward, both on the individual and my affordability and how I move, but also on like cities and the constant, like how much of a city is used as a parking lot space, which you wouldn't need. So as land prices go up, as densities of cities get back, if we have autonomous vehicles that are driving and they're shared as a fleet, whatever, or at least in the city area, then all those massive buildings that are car parks, all that footprint giving over to there suddenly becomes resellable land, properties that can be used for new business. So I think there's other, again, third order considerations that will start to impact how this evolves and how it plays out.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, Nick. One question I would love to talk to you about as an entrepreneur, as a tech visionary, as a business person, as you think back on your career in general and at CI&T and the work you're doing in AI, what's the biggest mistake you made and what did you learn from it?
I think for a long time, I believed others had the answers. I thought if you're from a big company and you have a senior role, then you probably know the answer. And I didn't try stuff, didn't do stuff. And I think particularly like when we were a small, scrappy firm, going up against the likes of Accenture, which are $100,000 billion business, whatever, much bigger. You're like, oh my gosh, this person's there. How dare I go into the room and say a contradictory viewpoint or whatever? And we lost a lot. We limited ourselves a lot because of that. We didn't go for swings we should have gone for. And the CEO, Carl Uminski, who was the founder of Somo, didn't have that gene in him at all. He never thought anyone else knew more than him. And I think I learned a lot from him to not limit myself to go for some of those, because we're, especially in this industry where it's so new, so evolving all the time, we're all making it out. Anyone who's predicting what's going to happen in 5 years is, there might be an educated guess, but it's still a guess. And I think understanding how businesses work, trusting yourself to how you solve problems before and going for it is something which I now do a lot more. And most of the time it helps. It helps people respond to it well. Even those big senior people are like, actually, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of it. So I think it's not limiting myself by thinking someone else has the answer, because no one has the answer, and we're all doing our best guesses to try and get there.
That's a great answer. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
That's great. And before we wrap up, where can people learn more about you and the work you're doing and about CI&T in general?
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Nick Haywood. I'm going to have a chat to you. Visit the CI&T website if you so wish, but I think a chat is probably easier. And later this year, we will be launching more publicly about Open Auto. For right now, we want to make sure we've got a lot of the open source already built and out there, so it's valuable for people when we launch. But I think Kahn Media will be helping us get our name out there in about September time this year.
Yeah, happy to be working on that. It's an exciting project. Well, that's great. Thank you for coming on the show, Nick. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing such interesting insight into sort of a totally new world that our industry is slowly, or actually not slowly, but kind of rapidly smashing into, and where things are headed. That's a wrap for today's episode of Only the Strong Survive. If you got something out of this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review on the platform you're listening to, or tell a friend. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.